Hilchas Gneivah Perek Chamishi. Osur liknis min aganav hachefetz shegonav. V'oven godelu shari machzik yedei every avera and v'gerim le'lignev gneivas acheres. Weißt it's two in yon. First of all, he's machzik yedei every avera. Knows he's helping the ganav. The ganav is finding a buyer, and also v'gerim le'lignev gneivas acheres. He's causing that the ganav will steal at a different time. Because you're not supposed to help someone that's doing an avera. You're helping him do that avera. He's not going to do any more averas. But lapel, you're helping him in his avera that he's doing, and also v'gerim le'lignev gneivas acheres. V'ram sheim le'yimtzu l'kecha dochein negeniv. V'al zeh nemar choylik im ganav sein in nafshei. That someone that's a choylik im ganav is saying in nafshei, he's saying his own nefesh because he's doing an avera. He's getting involved together with his ganav. Now the ma'aseh is that if so there's a diun, when you have a ganav that stole something and then he was koined b'shinui. So Al Rebbe brings the Shulchan Aruch that you're allowed to buy from him because now it belongs already to the ganav. He has no chiyuv tashlumin. Since he has hashava, he has no chiyuv hashava. So right now he's allowed to keep it. The Shara Melech holds differently. The Shara Melech holds that even if he was koined b'shinui, but since he got it through Gneivah, you shouldn't buy it from him. But Shein Al Rebbe brings clearly from the Shein the Shuvas Rivosh and others that hold that once he was koined b'shinui, then you are allowed to buy it from him. So the question is, when you're saying you're not allowed to buy from a ganav, what's the matzah of the ganav? We're talking about there was a kinyan shinui. Was there yush already, or wasn't there yush? Now, if there was yush, so the chura, by buying it from the ganav, you're making it always the belonging to the nignav. Whereas you're buying it from the ganav, till now it belongs to the nignav. The nignav really should take it back. From the ganav owes it back to the nignav. By you buying it from the ganav, you're really making it that it should no longer belong to the nignav. It shouldn't belong to the original owner. So you're being mishtatif in taking it away from the original owner. So l'chura, that's the issur. Not only the fact that you're being mechazik in the every avera and the fact that you're gerim hishul nignav, you're actually taking an item which belongs to the nignav and you're causing that it should become always the nignavs. That's l'chura on that. And on the other hand, if we're talking about an item that he wasn't meyayish yet, so l'chura, this item mamish belongs to the original nignav. So if you're coming and buying it, so l'chura, there's an isser that you're taking something that belongs to someone else and you're holding it. So they bring taka. The shaila is, we discussed this earlier, when a person steals from a ganav, is there psadin Gneivah legabi the original owner? The gabi original owner, this item is not in the house of the original owner. So there's no Maaseh Gneivah, there's no even Chiv Keren to the original owner. But Al Kolpon, it's still hard to understand because Lepel, you have in your possession something which is not yours. In other words, you're going to go ahead and be using something in your possession. In other words, if we're dealing, so we're asking a shayla, is it bifnei, there's three matzov. There's a matzav of lifnei years, there's a matzav of la'achar years, and there's a matzav of la'achar shinui. See, if the Rambam is talking about la'achar shinui, it's understandable. Because the pshat is, even though there was a shinui, it really belongs to the ganav, but nevertheless, you shouldn't be buying things from the ganav. Then you can understand pshat. But l'chura, if we're talking about it, it's lifnei yush, lifnei shinui. So l'chura, so it's either lifnei yush or la'achar yush. So if it's lifnei yush, so it mamish belongs to the original owner. So l'chura, you're taking an item which doesn't belong to you, and you're buying it, and you're going to go use it. So I mean, you're using something that belongs to someone else. So l'chura, it's very hard to understand that the only reason why you're not allowed to do it is because also l'chazik de'er averi. You're using an item which doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the nignav. Unless you'll say, since you don't know who the nignav is, so therefore you could use it. It's hard to understand. And if it's talking about la'achar yush, so by you buying it from the item, you're really causing that the item should become yours. B'kitzur, we're saying l'chura, there's a din nachabal. The Rambam clearly paskins you're not allowed to buy an item from a ganav. There's some that learn that this din applies also when it's la'achar shinui. And then it's l'chura understandable. That's the chidush, that even it's la'achar shinui, you're not allowed to buy it. If it's talking about that it's lifnei shinui, so then the l'chura, it belongs to the nignav. So l'chura, what's the chidush you're not allowed to buy it? It's not yours. If you're buying it and causing it that it should become a shinui or a shus through the years, it becomes years and shinui or shus. So l'chura, you're mamish finishing off the Gneivah. So you're causing that the Gneivah should no longer be his. The nignavs will become yours, and if it's kedem yours, so it's take his. So obviously you're not allowed to use it. Halacha beis hagenev umochar v'leinis yaishu abaylam. Now here the Rambam is going to discuss the din of takonis hashuk. Let's just maybe say it over bekitzer. The din is azay, that when a person goes ahead and steals money, steals an item, and then he sells the item, so if there was no yush of the original owner, so be'emes that chayfet still belongs to the original owner, like we mentioned before. The item, since there was no yush, so memela, the item still belongs to the original owner. So be'emes meikra the din, if somehow or another the nignav, the original owner, could prove that this item is really an item that was stolen from him and it was sold to this third party, so the din is he could go and take it back, and then the lekeach min haganav could go and have a din with the ganav. But lepel will come out that el shtickle is a problem for the shuk. When a person is buying an item, he's afraid maybe it's a davar ganav. It'll be a problem to buy things. So therefore, the Chacham instituted that when a person buys an item, and the pashtus advarim, it's not ganav. So even though later on it'll be nizbarer that it was ganav, so he doesn't have to return it to the original owner unless the original owner pays for it. So again, Reuven owned an item. Shimon went ahead and was going of this item from Reuven, and Shimon went and sold it to Levi. Now Reuven comes and brings Edom that Shimon did the Gneivah on this item and that he sold it to Levi. So Mimela Reuven is entitled to take the item from Levi. In order for Reuven to take the item from Levi, he has to pay Levi what Levi paid Reuven. What Levi paid Shimon rather. Levi paid the Ganef. And then after Reuven, which is the original owner, pays Levi, so he takes the item, and then he goes to Shimon, which is the Ganef, and he wants from him the money that he paid Levi. That's the Takonis Hashuk. Now this din is only if Levi did something innocently. He bought it from Shimon. How should he know that it's Ganuf? Masha'inkin, if Shimon was a bavusta Ganef, he's a Ganef Meforsim, so maybe Shimon should have suspected that this item is Ganuf. So there's no Takonis Hashuk. And then Reuven could go ahead and take the item from Levi without paying from him. And then Levi will go deal with Shimon. Levi bought an item from Shimon, which was this Ganef Meforsim. He gave him money. Now Levi no longer has the item, so Levi deals with Shimon. That's the Pashta Din of the Takonis Hashuk. Now this is a case where we're talking about that there was no Yish at all. There was no Yish, so Be'etzem, the item belongs to Reuven. The item belongs to Reuven. And Memele, the question is, Reuven take it from Levi with paying for it? That's if it was not a Ganav Meforsim, or does he do it with paying for it if it wasn't a Ganav Meforsim? If it was a Ganav Meforsim, so he takes it without paying for it, and if it wasn't a Ganav Meforsim, then he takes it with paying for it. Now what happens if there was Yush? So if there was Yush, so Be'etzem, the item now belongs to Levi. So obviously Reuven can't come and say, I want the item back. The item belongs to Levi. But the Shittas Harambam is that even when the Levi was Kaina, knows if Reuven, this not everyone agrees to it. Knows Shimon stole the item from Reuven, and then Shimon went ahead and sold it to Levi. So l'chura, now it's Levi's. Now it's Levi's, has nothing to do with Reuven. But Me'ikra the Dinah, the Rambam holds that Reuven still has a right to mon money from Levi. In other words, he can mon money from Levi because he'll say, listen, this is my item. Einochinami, you are kainet, but you are only kainet be'efim kazeh that you still have to pay me money for it. In other words, that's a shittas Rambam. The question is that a takana the Rabbanan that he owes him money, or the pashas from the Rambam over here comes out that that's be'ikra the din, the din that Yush and Shinner Rishus is kaina is the pshat is with Yush and Shinner Rishus the lekech is kaina, but on the other end the lekech has to pay back the money to the original owner, which is Reuven. Now, Bamedvar Mamurim, that he would have to pay back money to the original owner, which is Reuven, only if he bought it from someone that was a Ganef Meforsim. So so there was no Takonis Hashuk for him, so he paid for it to a Ganef Meforsim, but the Vaili also has to pay back to Reuven, because Reuven is telling, listen, this is my item, and even though you are coin it, and I can't mund the item back, but I can mund the money back. If he bought it from a Ganef She'eni Meforsim, so just like if Reuven would mamish be entitled to the item, but he would be entitled to the item where he have to pay Levi. So over here, for sure, Levi doesn't have to pay back the money to Reuven. That's these two dinim in Beis and Gimel. Halacha Beis. Hagoynev umochar v'leinas yaishu abaylim. Someone stole an item. He steals an item. He was goynev an item, and he sold it, and there was no yush. So Mela, it really belongs to the original owner. and v'achar kach huker aganav, ubo edem shezeh achefet shemochri pleini zeh hu ganvi b'fanenu. So we have edem clearly that this item, which let's say Shimon, the case we said, Shimon sold Levi, was definitely an item which Shimon stole from Reuven, and he sold it to Levi. So the din is first of all chezer achefes lebolov. So the item goes back to the original bailim because it's his. There was no yush, so it goes back to him. And b'habailim noisen leker domim sheshoka leganov. Now the bailim have to. This Reuven has to give Levi the money that Levi paid Shimon. And why does he have to give money? The answer is the takonis hashuk. That's a din derabbanon. A din derabbanon says takonis hashuk, that people should feel comfortable buying. They should feel ensured that if they'll buy something, they'll find out it's gonov. They'll get paid back from the original owner. So Memele takonis hashuk, Reuven has to pay back Levi. And v'habailim is choizen v'isen din maganav, since Reuven had to pay to get his own item back. So he goes and he wants from the ganav that the ganav got this money from Levi. Okay. That's talking about if he wasn't a ganav mefursim. So Mele there's a takonis hashuk for Levi. However, v'im ganav mefursimu, if this Shimon was a ganav mefursim, so also made takonis hashuk. The fact that Levi bought from Shimon, there's no takonis hashuk for Levi. And Memele ve'ein habaylim neisen lekech klum. So now Reuven doesn't have to give anything to Levi. Ela choizer alekech ve'isa dinim haganav. So Reuven takes the item from the buyer, and he takes it without paying anything. And the buyer goes back to the ganav, which he gave the money to, and he asks him for the money. He claims the money back from this ganav. Ela choizer halekech ve'isa dinim haganav. Memeitzi mimenu domim sheshokolei. Now this din is talking about that there was no yush, so be'etzim the item belongs to the original owner. The question is only, does the original owner have to pay for it because of takonis hashuk, or does he not have to pay for it because there's no takonis hashuk, because it's a ganav hamefursim? Now what happens? Halacha gimel nisyaishu abaylim and Gneivah. The baylim were nisyaishu and Gneivah, and the Rambam holds ben shnisyaishu v'achar kach mocher aganav, ben shnisyaishu acher shemocher, that the lekeach owns the item, whether the yush took place kedem bechira or the yush took place acher bechira. And the other Rishonim hold that the whole din that yush and shiner rishus is kena is only at first there was yush and then there was shiner rishus, because the ikar kinyan is the yush, just the shiner rishus you need in order that there shouldn't be a chiyuv chazar al kol panim. But the Rambam holds that the din of yush works sai lifnei shiner, sai lifnei bechira, sai acher bechira. So Nachamol, Nisyaishu abaylim and Gneivah, ben shnisyaishu achar kach mocher haganav, ben shnisyaishu achar shemocher. So now this likeach now owns the item. Is kana likeach b'yishin rishus. That's nishdava sered. Now it belongs to the likeach. Now the ve'eni machzer Gneivah atzmul bala. So now he doesn't have to return the Gneivah atzmul bala. However, so the Rambam holds noisin lehem adomim. That's the chiddush of the Rambam. The chiddush, that even though the lekeach was kena with yush and shiner rishus, so the ganav ganvet, the lekeach was kena with yush and shiner rishus, so lechura now the ganav owes the nignav money. So we say no, that in order for the person that bought the item from the ganav, which was kena with yush and shiner rishus, he also owes the nignav money. He owes the nignav money because he's taking the item from the nignav. Right now it's becoming his, but it's becoming his, and in exchange he has to pay back the nignav the money. So elimination lehem damim. However, that's only in lokach meganav mefursim. If he's lokach meganav mefursim, so memela there's no din of takonis hashuk for him. So since there's no din of takonis hashuk, so he knows that it was a ganav mefursim, and now he was kained with yish and shiner rishus. But together with his kinyan yish and shiner rishus, he has to pay back the original nignav. How? And another situation would be klal. There could be a case where he doesn't pay back anything. He certainly doesn't have to give back the chayfetz because the chayfetz is his. The issue is only does he have to give back the domim. So we say there's a situation where he doesn't give back not the chayfetz and not the domim, but takonis hashuk. So there's a mitzvah called a takonis hashuk. Either takonis hashuk tuzuf, that you have to pay the lekeach when the lekeach you pay you're taking it from the lekeach, but you're paying the lekeach, even though you don't have to pay him, but the pay you are paying him, or there could be a takonis hashuk that the lekeach doesn't have to pay you. That would be there's two ifanim takonis hashuk. Either takonis hashuk is that you pay the lekeach when you're taking it from him, or you're not taking it from him because he was Kena with Yesh Shin Rishus. The question is, are you entitled to the money which you would normally be entitled? So Takonas Hashuk is that you're not entitled to that money. Halacha Dalet. Bisman shal lekeach eisa dinim balabayis. The lekeach is eisa dinim balabayis. He's timing that the balabayis has to pay him back the money. Let's say there was no yush, so now the balabayis is taking back this item, but the lekeach is timing that I paid for the item. This is how much I paid for the item, and before the balabayis takes the item, he has to pay him. So bisman shal lekeach eisa dinim balabayis, and ein edim become a locker. There's no edim how much the lekeach bought it from the ganav. So the din is Ariatager Nishba, the Tager is called the Lekech, Ariatager Nishba ben the Kittas Chayfetz, become a lokach. He makes a shvur ben Kittas Chayfetz, become a lochet, v'netel min ha-bailam, and he takes it from the bailam. So in other words, the bailam is paying this Lekech mitzat takonis hashuk. How much does he have to pay him? He pays him according to how much the Lekech paid the ganav. How does he know how much the Lekech paid the ganav? So now there's another din that the Lekech is nishba v'netel. He's nishba how much he paid the ganav, and he's netel from the balabayas. And v'chol nishba v'netel, whenever there's a musa called nishba v'netel, is always shvuasim midivreim. The shvua is only a drabanan de kashvua. V'nishba ben kittas chayfetz k'meshi is bourbon kemeh. I mean, there's a difference. There's certain nishba v'netel where the chiddush of the nishba v'netel is the noitel. In other words, the noitel itself is a chiddush. And how is the nishba v'netel? He's a nishba v'netel. Masha'en Kain, there's another mitzvah of a nishba v'netel. V'amas the netel is not a chiddush. The pashtus is a netel. The chiddush is only that you have to be a nishba for this netel. I'll call upon him. In this case over here, the netel itself is a chiddush. The fact that he's taking money, that's a din d'Rabbanan. Now there's another din d'Rabbanan. How much money does he take? And that is a nishba v'netel. Aloha. Bisman shall lekeach oised din maganav. When the lekeach is the one that's being oised din maganav, v'hu emer bekach. No, there's a case where the lekeach is taking the money from the original owner. That was bisman shall lekeach oised din balabayis. And then there's a mitzvah of a lekeach is oised din maganav. Because he's tiny that the ganav has to give him back the money that he paid for it. In other words, the item was taken away from him. The ganav was a ganav mefursa. So the item was taken away from him because lepel there was no takonis hashuk. The item was taken away from him because there was no yish. There was no yish, so the item was taken away from this likeach, and now the likeach is going back to the ganav and saying, "Listen, I had an item that I bought from you. Now you have to give me back the money that I paid you." Bisman shel likeach esed din maganav, and it's clear that he bought it from this ganav. So now there's an argument between the lekech min haganav or the ganav itself. So hatager nishba ben the kittas chayfes v'netel min haganav. So here the lekech goes ahead and makes an kittas chayfes in order to take from the ganav. She'ein haganav yochel lishav l'chura. Let the ganav be a nishba v'niftar. Let the ganav be a nishba v'niftar. No, in the case of the first case, where the lekech is esidim balabayis, the balabayis doesn't know. The balabayis has no idea how much the lekech actually paid the ganav. So the male over there, obviously the lekech has to swear. Mashenkin over here, there's machlekes between the ganav and the lekech. The ganav is tying one amount, and the lekech is tying another amount. So why do we say that the ganav is nishba v'niftar? That the lekech is a nishba v'netel? Why don't we say that the ganav is a nishba v'niftar? So the answer is, she'ein haganav hatager nishba b'nekitas chayfes v'netel min haganav. She'ein haganav yochel lishaveh mipnei shu choshed al hashvur. Because since the ganav is choshed al hashvur, so therefore there's no option of the ganav swearing. So memela, what happens is that the lekech swears that he's a nishba v'netel. Halacha vav. Gonav upara b'chevei, ugonav upara b'hakefei. So we said a person buys an item, so there's a takonis hashuk, that when the original owner comes and takes it away, he reimburses the buyer the money that he paid for this item. But what happens if someone got an item from a ganav, not in a way that he bought the item? The ganav owed him money. And memela, he went ahead, he stole the item, and he paid the money to this third person. In other words, Shimon stole from Ruvain, and he owed Levi money, and he went ahead and paid Levi. He paid Levi with this item. And now this original Reuven, which was never Miyayish, is coming, and he wants to take the item back from Levi. And now the question is, does he have to reimburse Levi for that amount of money that Shimon owed him? So we say, Bishleim, if Levi laid out money for the item, so we have to reimburse him for that money that he laid out. But over here, he never laid out any money. In other words, this item, which was a stolen item, he was being paid up a chayv. Now we find out he was paid up a chayv with a stolen item, so he doesn't really deserve any takonas hashuk. In other words, takonas hashuk is when you buy an item, you spend money for it, and now they're going to take it away from you, and you're not going to be reimbursed, so that's a problem. But over here, he didn't spend any money from it. This item was being used in order to pay up a debt. So over here, there's no takonas hashuk. That's this din. Halachavav. Gonav, someone steals something, upara becheve, and he went and he pays up a debt with his Gneivah. Or Gonav, upara bekefe. Is Eibei bezet takonas hashuk? There's no takonas hashuk. Ela habaylim, the original baylim. We're talking about there was no yush. Is noitel ma Gneivah b'lei domim. Take back the Gneivah without paying for it. V'yishor chayv elu ala ganav shoyu. And the original debt, which the ganav owed this third party, that Shimon owed Levi, is still there. And those originally it looked like as he paid up his debt, but now we found out that he paid up with a davar agonov. And Memele, the davar agonov goes back to the original owner. Memele is this guy that he never paid up his debt. That's talking about if he paid up his debt. Now, what happens if mishkin agneva? In other words, someone steals an item, and then he goes ahead and gives it as a mashkin, and as a result of that, he gets a loan. So there's a mitzias of that he sold the item, he got paid for it. There's a mitzias he used it to pay up a debt. Here it's like in between. He didn't get paid for it, but on the other hand, he got a loan on this item. So this person that really has this mashkin, which is now being taken away from him, really gave out money because of this mashkin. And notice he got the mashkin because he thought he's getting a mashkin. Based on that, he gave out a loan. And now if you're going to take away this mashkin from him, so basically he doesn't have any collateral on his loan. Nochamal, mishkin agneva, if this ganef gave the third person this gneva as a mashkin, ben shin mishkin b'yasal yidamel, whether he was mashkin, the loan was more than the value of the mashkin, or the loan was less than the value of the mashkin. So the din is habaylim nesn l'bal mashkin. So the bailim have to give the money to the bal mashkin, just like if the Levi, let's say in the case of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. So Reuven is coming to Levi, and Levi bought it from Shimon, so he has to reimburse Levi for what he bought. So al derech zeh, if Levi lent money to Shimon, based on the mashkin that Shimon gave him, which was the stolen item, so Reuven has to give Levi that money that he lent. Habaylim nesnel balamashkin, and then v'chayzim v'eisen din maganav. Then he has to be oised din maganav. Elim keno yaganav mefursim k'mesha biyarnu. When it's a ganav mefursim, just like if Levi would have bought the item from a ganav mefursim, so there's no takonis hashuk for Reuven to reimburse Levi. So al derech zeh, if Levi was lent money to Shimon, which was a ganav mefursim, based on this mashkin that he got from Shimon, so now when Reuven takes this mashkin back, he doesn't have to reimburse Levi. Now, halikeach miganav she'enim mefursim, person that buys from a ganav she'enim mefursim, ben shelokach mimenu shavim moned b'masayim, a shavim moned b'masayim. So knows whether he got a very good deal or a very bad deal. Either way, hareza netel hadom balabais. He could always he takes the money of balabais. Knows the balabais has to reimburse the lekeach what he paid. It's nothing to do with the value of the item, whether the value is bemis more, the value is bemis less. I mean, the original balabais could always have the choice to say, listen, it's not worth it for me to go ahead and take this item back and pay double the amount. You know, you paid for this item double of what it's worth. I'm not going to go ahead and take this item back from you in order to and pay you double of what it was worth. But I'll call upon him. But Lepel, if he wants the item back, if he insists that he wants the item back, he has to pay the lekeach what the lekeach paid. It makes no difference what the value of the item is. Nachamo. Halekeach miganav she'enim mefursim ben shelakach mimenu shavim me'eb masai. So he paid double. The lekeach gave the ganav double of what it was really worth. A shavim masai b'manu, he paid him half of what it was worth. Either way, hareza netel hadam balabais. That money that he gave to the ganav, that's what he takes from the balabais. V'achar kach machzer Gneivah, and that's when takonis ashuk kimesha b'yarnu. So that's why he has to pay the Nachamol. Reuven, the original owner, pays the lekeach whatever the lekeach paid. Halacha ches. Now, Hoya Noishe Beganav Meazus. Now, we learned over here in Halacha Vav, we had a case like this. When the Ganav went ahead and used this item to pay up a debt, so there's no takonas hashuk for this person that got paid from a Gneivah. The Gneivah goes back to the original owner, and the debt still remains. If the Ganav used this Gneivah not to pay up a debt, but to use it as a collateral to get a debt, so then you do have to reimburse the lender, this Levi, which lent money based on this mashkin. So if you're taking away the mashkin from him, you have to reimburse him with that money that he lent based on that mashkin. Now what happens? Halacha Ches, this is like in between. Hoya noishe beganav mezus. There was someone. We'll have the case of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Shimon is the ganav, and Shimon owes Levi 100 zuz. Hoya noishe beganav mezus. The ganav owed Levi mezus. Now the ganav. So this ganav went ahead, this Shimon, and behavi lebalchevi, and he brought the balchevi this item which is worth 100 zuz. And now, after he gave him this item which was worth 100 zuz, now v'nosli me'acheres, now he gave him another 100 zuz. He lent him another 100 zuz. So the question is, do we say that it's ki'ilu a din of collateral? It's like a mashkin. In other words, I brought you an extra 100 zuz. The Ganav brought him an extra 100 zuz, and now Levi gave him the other 100 zuz. So ki'ilu like collateral. So B'meila now, when the original owner is going to want to take this item, so he's going to have to pay reimburse him 100 zuz, like the din of mashkin. Or we say no. This item that he gave him was betur piroin achev, was betur piroin achev. And when you give an item betur piroin achev, so the original owner could take it back without paying anything. Now he paid him another 100 zuz. Yeah, the 100 zuz, just like the first 100 zuz, he trusted him. The second 100 zuz, he also trusted him. So that's this din. Nachama, let's read again. Hoya noishe beganav me'azuz. There was a ganav that owed Levi 100 zuz. Now the ganav, so this ganav went ahead, this Shimon, and v'hevi lebalchev, he brought an item to the balchev which was worth 100 zuz. And now v'nosim le'me'acheres, and now this Levi now gave the ganav another 100 zuz. So the din is Gneivah chizeres l'bala. The Gneivah goes back to the bailam, and the bailam don't have to pay for it. Ve'emrim lozeh, and we say to Levi, Lech utvah ganav masayim. Go among by the ganav. The ganav owes you now 200 zuz. The reason why you gave this item, the reason why you gave him the extra 100 zuz wasn't because of this item. So we'll say this item as a din of a mashkin, and we learned before that by a mashkin there's also a takonas hashuk. The reason why you gave him that extra 100 wasn't because of that chayfetz. Just like you believed him when you lent him the first 100 zuz and there was no mashkin on it. So you'll believe him on the second 100 zuz. You didn't pay him the hundreds. You didn't give him the 100 zuz because of the mashkin. In other words, you thought that he paid you up the 100 zuz. Now you lent him another 100 zuz. But the item that he brought you wasn't betur mashkin on the second 100 zuz. It was betur piroin on the first 100 zuz. And when you give an item betur piroin, so then there's no takonas hashuk. Memela, the original owner, could take it back without anything. Yeah. Halacha tes. Lokach miganav she'enim mefursim b'meya. A person buys an item from a ganav she'enim mefursim b'meya, and now umocher la'acher b'meya b'esr. So now there's a new person involved. Again, we'll say Reuven was the original owner. Shimon stole it from Reuven. He sold it to Levi for 100 zuz, and now Levi sold it to Yehuda for 120 zuz. Now Levi sold it to Yehuda for 120 zuz, and there was no yush. Nachamo. Lakach miganav she'enim mefursim b'meya. So this Levi bought it from Shimon, which is a ganav enim mefursim b'meya. Umacher la'acher b'meya v'esrim. And now this Levi went ahead and sold it to Yehuda for 120. And now v'hukar aganav. And now we realize that it's a Gneivah, and Mela Reuven wants his item back. Now Bala Gneivah. So since Yehuda Lepel bought it for 120, see, he didn't buy it from a Ganav. He bought it from Levi, which Levi bought it from the Ganav, which the Ganav sold. But Lepel, now when this original owner wants to take his item from Levi, he has to pay Levi what Levi paid for it. Now the Choizer Habal, so now the Baal, which is the original owner, is now out of pocket of 120, because he paid 120 for an item which is really his. So now the noitel esim shel schar min hamoicher. Now lepel, there was a takonas ashuk. There was a takonas ashuk. So the buyer that spent money for this item has a takonas ashuk. But lepel, Levi went ahead. Levi doesn't. Levi has an extra 20, has an extra 20 because lepel he bought it for 100 and he sold it for 120. That extra 20 really he had no right to because it wasn't his item. It was an item of Reuven's. So mainly he made an extra 20 on an item of Reuven. And for that there's no takonas ashuk for him to be able to keep that item. There's a takonas ashuk to pay him up for the item that he paid for. But since he made money on an item that really belonged to Reuven, so therefore he has to give back that 20 to Reuven. Is memele v'chezer abal, so the original owner goes, and noitel esem shel schar min hamechel, so he goes and takes the 20 that the lekeach made, and v'noitel hameya min haganav, so then he takes the meya min haganav. So that's this din. So the din is he takes the meya min haganav, and he takes the 20 from Levi, and he gives 120 to Yehuda. Is nachamo. Reuven is the owner. Shimon stole from him. Shimon sold it to Levi for 100. Levi sold it to Yehuda for 120. Comes along Reuven. Reuven takes it out of Yehuda. There was no Yush. He takes it away from Yehuda. He pays Yehuda 120. He goes to Reuven and he says, Reuven, you made 20 on my item. It's not your item. So he has to give him back the 20 that he earned from this item. He doesn't give him back the money that he paid, but he gives him the money that he earned from it. And Lepel now goes ahead, Reuven, and he takes the other 100 from Shimon. That's din hazeh. Now v'im ganav meforsamu. However, if Shimon was a ganav meforsamu, so be'emes Levi had no right to buy it from Shimon in the first place. And if Levi would have had the item, so he would have been able to take it from Levi without paying him at all. So now Nachmer, he could go ahead and take the whole 120 from Levi. He says, you Levi took an item which you shouldn't have had, and you sold it to Yehuda, and you got 120. That 120 really is mine. That 120 is mine. Why is it mine? Because Lepel, I paid that 120 to Yehuda for the item. So Mela, I had to pay him that money that you got from him. So Mela, I want all of the 120. So if Lepel, he didn't buy from a Ganav Meforsim, so Mela is a takonis ashuk for Levi. But over here, Vim Ganav Meforsim, Netel Ameh Ve'esim and Atagar Shalakha Paraganav. And then V'hilach HaTagar, and then the Tagar goes with Teveya Haganav B'meh Shel Keren, and he gets back his 100 from the Keren. V'hu adin of Machra Sheni L'shlishi V'shlishi L'Levi Afilu Meya. So there's always Shehu Netel Mikol Echad Ve'echad Mashem Nisker, and V'netel HaKeren Min Haganav. So again, this din again, if it wasn't a Ganav Meforsim, if it wasn't a Ganav Meforsim, so the Seder Advarim is, the buyer, the last buyer that you're taking away the item from him, you have to give him what he paid for it. Then you take from each one their profit, because they're not entitled to the profit. And then you go back and you take back from the Ganav the money that he got from the buyer. You go back to the Ganav and you take from him the money that he got from the buyer. Now, this is all talking about lifnei years. So the original owner is taking the item, and he has to pay for the item. The Konas HaShuk, he has to pay for the item. And since he pays for the item, so now he's being reimbursed for this payment. Who is he reimbursed from? So he's reimbursed from all these people that profited from this item, and then ultimately he's reimbursed for the money that the Ganav got for the item. Halacha Yud. Bala Bayis she'eni osur limkeres kelev. So over here again, we're talking about the din of Takonas HaShuk, but it's different. In the case before we had, where a person had owned an item, and now there's clearly Adam, that this item that someone else has really is the item that he really owned, and it was stolen. In other words, there was Adam that there was a Gneivah, and there was an Adam that this Gneivah was sold to this Lekeach. Now the question is that this original owner wants to take back this item, which is really his, because Lepel there was no Yush, and there was a din, there is Takonas HaShuk that has to pay for it. He has to reimburse him with the money that he paid to this Ganav. That was what we learned until now. But over there was talking about that it was clearly a Dover HaGonof. In other words, there was Adam that there was a Gneivah, and there was an Adam that this Gneivah was now beyond of this Lekech. Over here we're talking about a situation where it's not so clear that it's a Gneivah. In other words, there's no Adam that it's a Gneivah. There's rayas, is circumstantial evidence that it was Gneivah. And nevertheless, we say that's also a Takonas HaShuk, that he could time that it's Gneivah. There's certain times that he could time that it's Gonuf, and Memela he could take it away from the Lekeach and Kemuvin that he'll have to reimburse the Lekeach, whatever the Lekeach paid to the Ganav. Just like if it would be clear that it was a Gneivah, he would have to reimburse him. So over here, he would also have to reimburse him. That's the code of this din. Halacha Yud. Bala Bayis She'eni Osir Limkiris Kelev. So notice we're going to have a situation where something was owned by someone. Reuven owned the item, that's for sure. And now Levi has the item. Levi has the item. Has this item that Reuven once owned. That's also for sure. Now Levi is not tining that Reuven is not tining that Levi stole it from him. But Reuven is tining that this item was stolen from him, and Levi bought it from a Ganef. And Memela, Reuven wants this item back from Levi, and he'll reimburse him for that item. So the question is, when do we nem on this time of Reuven that it was Ganef? Maybe Reuven sold it. Maybe Reuven really sold the item, and Memela, this buyer went ahead and sold it to Levi, and now Reuven had charot, and he wants to get it back. But how do we know that Reuven taka that's a dover agonuf? Do we nem on the time of Reuven that it's a dover agonuf? And Memela, he has a right to take it from Levi and go ahead and pay back Levi. Bala Bayis She'ini Osir Limkiris Kelev. We're talking about a person, this Reuven is not a person that sells his Kelev. He's not a person that regularly sells his Kelev. And Lepel Tzudartzu is V'yotzel Ishem Gneivah Be'ir. There was a Psashem that he had a Gneivah. And Lepel V'hika Kelev V'svarav B'yad Acherim. He recognizes that his item is a sefer which has his name on it, or whatever, his item is B'yad Acherim. That's one situation. So there's a person that's Eini Osir Limkiris Kelev, and he's a person that Yosel Gneivah Be'ir, and now this item finds itself B'yad Acherim, and he's tining that it was stolen, and that's Ganef sold it to him. Maybe he wants the chayfetz back, and he'll pay him back. That's one situation. Even if he's a person that's Osir Limkiris Kelev, so this kelim was a dover hasurim lahashal hasker, and also he was yotze. The Magad Mishnah adds, and it was also yotze l'shem Gneivah Be'ir. So you know, there's two reasons to assume that it wasn't, that he didn't sell it. One reason to assume that he didn't sell it is we had a case where he's Eini Osir Limkiris Kelev and yotze l'shem Gneivah Be'ir. That's the two in Yonim. And Alderas over here, this is an item which bepashtus he didn't sell. First of all, it's an item which is Osir Lahashul Lahasker. And the Rambam in Teim V'Nitten seems to be saying that a dover she'Osir Lahashul Lahasker is less likely that he sold. And also over here there could be another factor, because the shaila is, how did it get out of his house? How did it get out of his house? If it's possible that he sold it. But if he's the Eini Osir Limkiris Kelev, so that's not that takes away that possibility. On the other end, over here, there's another factor, because there's a possibility that it got out of his house because he lent it, or he rented it. So davar osir lahashul lahasker. So he's tining, I never sold it. I rented it maybe, and lepel, that person that I rented it to, went ahead and sold it to you. But I'll call upon him. These are the two possibilities. Either he's a person that Eini Osir Limkiris Kelev and yotze shem Gneivah Be'ir, or he's a person that's Osir Limkiris Kelev, but we're dealing with something which is Osir Lahashul Lahasker, so Memela, the likeliness of him selling it is less, and also Yotze Shem Gneivah Be'ir. So now in Bo Edim, Shezeh Kelev Shezeh, Edim come along and say, yeah, we recognize that this item really belonged to this person. No, they're not saying there was a Gneivah. They're saying they recognize that this item, which finds itself now in the party, let's say in the case we said before, by Levi, was once Reuven's. So the din is Yishav Zeh Shein Biyadi Ben Kifet Chitzes Chayfetz Kamalokach. So now Levi goes ahead and swears Ben Chitzes Chayfetz Kamalokach, and V'yitul Mebalabayis V'yazol Lekelev. So over here we're employing the Takonas Hashuk that we said before, that he gets the money from the original owner, and over here there's another Takona. Takona is that we nem on what he's saying, even though it's not 100%. We nem on what he's saying, that this item was stolen from him, and Memela it was sold to someone else, and therefore he's entitled to the item back. Notice he's trying to be credited, the item is back, but on the other hand, he'll have to pay for it because there was a takonis hashuk. That's then we're talking about if the balabais was Eini Osir Limkiris Kelev, or he was Osir Limkiris Kelev, but it was Dvarim Hasuyim Lahashul Lahasker. Now, Hoya Halacha Yudalev, Hoya balabais Osir Limkiris Kelev, and V'lei Hoya Midvarim Hasuyim Lahashul Lahasker, is Afal Pi Sheyotzel Ishem Gneivah Be'ir, and V'hukru Kelev, is Ein Machzir Miyad Alekechus. Knows even though there was a shmua that there was Yotzul Hashem Gneivah Be'ir, and Lepel he goes into the category of Eini Osil Limker, but on the other end he's a person that's Osil Limker is Caleb, and it's not Dvarim Asurim Lahashal Hasker. So Mamela we say Eina Chanami there's a Shem Gneivah Be'ir, but Shema Hu Machron Lacher. We're saying he's timing that it's his, and he never sold it, but maybe he did sell it. There's no real yisod to say he didn't sell it. There's no real yisod to say he didn't sell it. There's a possibility that he sold it. And therefore, since there's a possibility that he sold it, so now when he's coming along and he's saying that he wants to get the item back, so the person that has the item says, listen, I don't know, maybe it was taka stolen, but maybe it wasn't stolen. No, there's a possibility that the person I bought it from was a proper, it was taka his because he bought it from you. Memela, you don't have a right to take it from me. That's this thing. You only have a right to take it from me if you have two factors. Either that it was Eini Yosel Limkeres Caleb and Yosel Hashem Gneivah Be'ir, or it's Dvar Masurim Lahashal Hasker and Yosel Hashem Gneivah Be'ir. Av Masha'inkin, if you don't have these two factors, if you don't have, it's not, you don't have the factor that Eini Yosel Limkeres Caleb, and you don't have the factor of Dvar Masurim Lahashal Hasker, so then even though you have the factor of that the Yosel Hashem Gneivah Be'ir, you're not entitled to get this Keli back. Avo. It wasn't Stam Yotzol Hashem Gneivah Be'ir. Bo Bnei Yod. People came, V'lonu B'teich Beis, and they stayed by his house. And then he wakes up, V'amad V'zog B'layla, and he screams, in the middle of the night he starts screaming, Nignevu Kela Yusvare, that my Kela Yusvarim as were stolen. Ubo Bnei Yodim, and people came from other places, Umotzu Machteres Chatura, they see a tunnel dug, Ubnei Adam Shalonu B'teich Beis, and they see that the people that were being lon B'teich Beis Yeitzin are going out Utzreiris or Kalim Al Kisveim. They have the bundles of Kalim Al Kisveim. V'Hakel and V'Hakel Emrim Hakel Halolu Kalim Svarishal Plady. That these are this person's Kalim. So mainly there's Adam over there saying that they saw people going out of the house through a Machteres, and this person is claiming. And this person is screaming that it's being stolen, and people are saying, "Yeah, we see that they're carrying out this person's items." Now, there's always a possibility that maybe he sold it. Maybe he really sold it to these people. If he sold it to these people, so why are these people running out? And no, we didn't see them stealing it. We didn't even see them taking it. We see them only walking out with these tzereiros al kasveim, with items that belonged to the original owner. And we'd assume that some of them are stealing it, but there's no real 100% that they're stealing it, because no one saw the Ma'aseh Gneivah. No one saw the Ma'aseh Gneivah. Someone only sees him screaming and them going out in this Machteres Chatura. So over here is Hareza Neman. So now he's Neman to say that this item was mine, and this item was stolen. And V'yishav ezeh shakelin shebiyodeh ben kitas chayfetz kama hoitzi. I'm sorry, is Hareza Neman. So he's Neman. Now he's Neman to say that it was stolen. So Stam was a taina that the item was stolen. So it depends. If he's a person that's Eini Yosel Limkeres Caleb, or he's a person, or we're dealing with Dvarim Asurim Lahashal Hasker, and Sudar there was Hashem Gneivah Be'ir, so then he has a taina to say it's stolen and to take it back and to pay Takonis Hashuk. Masha'inkin Stam if he's Yosel Limkeres Caleb, or he's or it wasn't Dvarim Asurim Lahashal Hasker, so then he doesn't have a right. But if such a scenario took place, and people saw these items seemingly being stolen, it's come out for sure that it's being stolen, it's not 100%. So then he could taina that this item, which I'm saying there were people there that saw this item being carried out of my house. So Mamela, it's a raya that it was a Gneivah. And Lepel, this item now finds itself by you. So I'm saying you bought it from a Ganev that I was never really Messiahish. And Mamela, right now, I want the item back, and he's Nema. That's this din. Harei ze Nema, v'yishava zeh shakelim biyodim and kintas chayfetz kama eitzi, v'yitum b'ala Gneivah, and v'yazol lekelim. So in such a case, he has to return the kintas. So we have two cases, really, or three cases, where there's a din that even though it's not 100%, but nevertheless, the original owner has a right to say that it was nignav, and memela, he could take it away from the person that's now in his possession, even though he bought it, because he's saying he bought it from a Ganev. Halacha Yud Beis. Ganev shehuzak v'nisparsim. You have a person that's a notorious Ganev. Shenichnas l'teich beis chaveri. And ve'edim eidim sheyotza ve'kelim tmunim leitachas knofov. They saw clearly kelim that were under his knofov. He was under his clothes. He put some kelim. He was hiding kelim under his clothes. Is aval pi shehoyisham balabais. The balabais was in the house, and v'toan v'amar lekuchen heim biyadi. So the person that was walking out with the kelim is tining that I bought it. I taka walked out with it under my clothes. I was holding it under my clothes or whatever. But on the other hand, there was something I bought. Or balabais emer gnuvan. The balabais says it was stolen item. Now we're talking about a person that was a ganav that was an isparsim. Ganav shehuvs even isparsim. So it's azoi. Im hoye balabayis ain't dark kalim keres kelev. He was a balabayis that's not dark kalim keres kelev. And ve'oisum kelim ain't derech b'nei odem latmino. And ve'ain derech oisi amuzig latzniya kelev tachas knofov. And there's all these inyonim. He's a balabayis ain't dark kalim keres kelev. These types of items is not something which people usually keep latminam. Let's say private clothes, whatever you want to keep, maybe under your bag. It's not type of kelim which darkim neodim latminam. And then also certain people that maybe when they carry things they cover it. It's not regular for this person to put things under his clothes. Is harei balabayis neman. So in such a case, the balabayis is neman. No, there's a cat. Again, we're talking about a ganav mefursim that went ahead in someone's house and he took out items from the person's house, and the items he was tachas kelev, it was mutman tachas knofov, and we're dealing with a person that's ein darke limker as kelev, is a kelev that should not darken latznion, and a person which is not derech latzniya kelev tachas knofov. So then our balabayis neman v'yishavim and kitas chayfetz v'netel kelev. His yeshava, now he has to swear, this is a chidush, that he has to swear that it was a stolen item, and he takes it back from the person. There's no money here involved. Over here, he's taking back the item from the ganav. However, if this person is not a muzik b'gneva, so then ein balabayis neman. Even though lepel there's an item, we're talking about an item. We're talking about a person walks out of someone's house with items that are muster tachas knofov, mutzno tachas knofov, and is kelim she'ein derech le'tzniya tachas knofov, and it's a person that's normally not masnir dark knofov, and he's tiny that he bought it. So the din is ein balabayis neman elenish bazeh shakelim biyodei shvuas hesses. All he has to swear is shvuas hesses because he's accusing him of Gneivah. Shakelim elu lekuchen biyodei and ve'elu.